Fritz Erich Georg Eduard von Lewinsky, born into the Prussian aristocracy in 1887 and later adopted to become Erich von Manstein, was a product of the rigid and esteemed German military tradition. His lineage was steeped in service. His biological father was an artillery general, his adoptive father a lieutenant general, and his maternal uncle none other than the future field marshal and president, Paul von Hindenburg. Commissioned in 1906, he served with distinction through the crucible of the First World War, absorbing the hard-won lessons of trench warfare and static attrition. Surviving the drastic post-war reduction of the German army, he became a key figure in the Select Reichswehr, a mind dedicated to rebuilding Germany's military might and restoring its tarnished pride after the humiliation of Versailles. With the rise of Adolf Hitler, Manstein, like many of his peers in the officer corps, saw a powerful catalyst for Germany's military resurgence. He was not a fervent Nazi ideologue, but a pragmatic nationalist who supported the remilitarization of the Rhineland and the annexations that followed. These actions, in his professional view, were merely the overdue reclamation of Germany's rightful place in historical borders. He ascended rapidly through the ranks during this period of rearmament, his sharp intellect and profound understanding of military doctrine making him an invaluable asset to the burgeoning Wehrmacht. His focus remained squarely on the operational art of war, a field where his talents would soon prove to be nothing short of revolutionary. His first major contribution to the Second World War came during the invasion of Poland in 1939, where he served as Chief of Staff to Army Group South. While the campaign is often remembered for the brutal efficiency of the Blitzkrieg tactics, Manstein was already thinking beyond it, envisioning how such a concept could be applied on a grander, more decisive scale. The Polish campaign was a proving ground, a violent dress rehearsal that confirmed the devastating potential of coordinated Panzer and Luftwaffe assaults. For Manstein, the swift collapse of Poland wasn't an end in itself, but a prelude to the main event, the inevitable confrontation with France and the Western Allies. It was in planning the invasion of France that Manstein's genius truly shone. The official German plan was a conservative rehash of the old Schlieffen plan from World War I. Manstein found it unimaginative and risky, arguing vehemently for a far more audacious alternative. His concept, which would become known as the Manstein Plan or the Sickle Cut, proposed a powerful armored thrust through the dense and supposedly impassable Ardennes forest. This daring maneuver was designed to bypass the formidable Maginot Line, cut across the rear of the main Allied armies in Belgium, and trap them against the English Channel. His superiors, wedded to caution, rejected his plan and had him transferred, but Manstein managed to secure an audience with Hitler, who immediately grasped the plan's audacious brilliance and adopted it as his own. The execution of the Manstein Plan in May 1940 was a stunning success, leading to the collapse of France in a mere 6 weeks. For his part, Manstein was promoted and given command of an infantry corps, a testament to his strategic insight. His next great challenge, however, would come on a far vaster and more brutal stage, the Eastern Front. With the launch of Operation Barbarossa in June 1941, Manstein commanded the 56th Panzer Corps as part of Army Group North. He led his forces with remarkable speed and skill, pushing deep into Soviet territory and capturing key objectives ahead of schedule, demonstrating his mastery of mobile warfare on the sprawling plains of Russia. His exceptional performance earned him command of the 11th Army, tasked with one of the most difficult objectives of the entire campaign, the conquest of the Crimean Peninsula and the heavily fortified naval fortress of Sevastopol. This campaign marked the zenith of his career. In a series of brilliant battles, he first destroyed overwhelming Soviet forces on the Kerch Peninsula before turning his full attention to Sevastopol. The siege was a brutal, grinding affair, culminating in a colossal artillery bombardment that included the deployment of the monstrous Schwerer Gustav railway gun. When the city finally fell in July 1942, a grateful Hitler promoted Manstein to the rank of Field Marshal. Yet the tide of war was inexorably turning. Following his triumph in the Crimea, Manstein was tasked with breaking the siege of Leningrad, an operation that ultimately failed. His greatest test came that winter, as the Soviet counteroffensive trapped the German Sixth Army under General Paulus at Stalingrad. Manstein was given command of the newly formed Army Group Don and ordered to relieve the beleaguered city. His relief attempt, Operation Winter Storm, came agonizingly close to success, but ultimately foundered against overwhelming Soviet resistance and Hitler's stubborn refusal to allow the Sixth Army to attempt a breakout. The surrender at Stalingrad was a catastrophic defeat from which the Wehrmacht would never fully recover. Despite the disaster, Manstein demonstrated his operational brilliance once more in the spring of 1943. Facing a massive Soviet advance after Stalingrad, he conducted a masterful fighting withdrawal before launching a devastating counteroffensive that recaptured the city of Kharkov. This backhand blow is still studied in military academies as a textbook example of mobile defense. However, this success only set the stage for the titanic clash at Kursk, the largest tank battle in history. Manstein planned the southern pincer of the German offensive, but the Soviets were well prepared. While inflicting horrendous losses, the Germans suffered irreplaceable casualties in men and elite armor, forever losing the strategic initiative on the Eastern Front. While Manstein's operational artistry is beyond dispute, his legacy is irrevocably stained by the criminal nature of the war he waged, particularly on the Eastern Front. The invasion of the Soviet Union was not a conventional conflict. It was a war of annihilation, a racially and ideologically motivated struggle to enslave and exterminate entire populations. Orders were issued from the highest levels of command, such as the infamous Commissar Order, which mandated the summary execution of captured Soviet political officers. The Wehrmacht was instructed to act with merciless severity, granting soldiers immunity for crimes committed against civilians under the guise of anti-partisan warfare. Manstein, as a high-ranking commander, was directly implicated in this machinery of terror. In November 1941, as commander of the 11th Army, he issued an order that left no room for ambiguity. He stated that the Jewish Bolshevik system must be exterminated once and for all, and demanded that his soldiers show full understanding for the necessity of the harsh but just punishment of Jewry. This order explicitly linked the German military mission with the Nazi regime's genocidal policies, effectively sanctioning and encouraging the atrocities being carried out by the SS Einsatzgruppen, the mobile killing squads that operated in his area of command. Throughout the post-war years, Manstein would consistently claim that he was an apolitical soldier, unaware of and uninvolved in the Holocaust and other war crimes. He cultivated an image of a professional officer concerned only with tactics and strategy, who held the dirty work of the Nazis in contempt. However, the historical record flatly contradicts these self-serving assertions. Reports and directives from his own command prove that he was not only aware of the mass killings of Jews and other civilians, but that his orders actively facilitated them. He demanded ruthlessness from his troops, and provided the ideological justification for their brutal actions against the civilian population. His complicity extended to the horrific treatment of Soviet prisoners of war. Following Wehrmacht policy, millions of captured Red Army soldiers were deliberately starved, exposed to the elements, and denied medical care, resulting in a staggering death toll. As a commander of vast armies, Manstein bore responsibility for the fate of the hundreds of thousands of prisoners taken under his command. His post-war attempts to distance himself from these crimes were a calculated effort to salvage his reputation and contribute to the pervasive myth of a clean Wehrmacht that fought an honorable war, distinct from the criminal enterprises of the SS. At the war's conclusion in May 1945, Field Marshal von Manstein was captured by the British. He was not immediately put on trial with the major war criminals at Nuremberg, but in 1949, he faced a British military tribunal in Hamburg. The charges centered on his command responsibility for the atrocities committed on the Eastern Front, including the mistreatment and killing of prisoners of war and civilians. He was ultimately convicted on 9 of 17 counts and sentenced to 18 years in prison. His conviction confirmed that the line between a soldier and a war criminal had been crossed, even for Germany's most brilliant strategist. However, Manstein's imprisonment was remarkably short-lived. The political climate was shifting rapidly with the onset of the Cold War. West Germany was now seen as a crucial bulwark against the Soviet Union, and the prospect of rearming the nation became a strategic priority for the Western Allies. In this new reality, the expertise of experienced German officers like Manstein was suddenly in high demand. Citing medical reasons and facing considerable political pressure, British authorities released him in 1953 after he had served only 4 years of his sentence. His early release was a pragmatic, if morally ambiguous decision, driven by geopolitical necessity. Upon his release, Manstein transitioned seamlessly into a new role as an influential elder statesman of military affairs. In the mid-1950s, he became a key, albeit unofficial, advisor to West German Chancellor Konrad Adenauer. He played a significant role in the establishment of the new German army, the Bundeswehr, helping to shape its structure and doctrine for a new era of European defense within the NATO framework. This advisory role effectively rehabilitated his public image, transforming the convicted war criminal into a respected founding father of West Germany's democratic military. In 1955, Manstein published his memoirs, Vers Lorraine Siege, or Lost Victories. The book was a masterful piece of revisionist history, brilliantly written and operationally fascinating, but deeply deceptive. In its pages, he presented himself as an apolitical military genius, constantly thwarted by the amateurish meddling of a hysterical Adolf Hitler. He meticulously detailed his strategic triumphs while almost completely omitting his role in war crimes and the genocidal nature of the Eastern Front campaign. The book became a bestseller and was instrumental in creating and cementing the myth of the clean Wehrmacht, absolving the German officer corps of its complicity in Nazi atrocities. Manstein died in 1973, buried with military honors, his legacy forever a complex duality of strategic genius and profound moral failure.